exactly. But let's talk about this right now. You know, there's a lot of trepidation as parents can have a new year starting up. Their children are all set for a new school year. You want to make sure everything is in its place and ready to go. But students around Chicago returned to class this week with the district still trying to figure out a lot itself. Not the least of which would be closing a massive budget deficit. So Chalkbeat reporter Reema Amin is joining me now to talk about 5 things to keep an eye on this semester. Thank you so much for being back with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's start. There's a lot to get to. We're going to start with enrollment, though, because the last several years it's taken a dip. What is the expectation this year?
Yeah, so, you know, in the past couple of years, enrollment actually ticked up slightly. And, you know, we think that's largely due to lots of newcomer migrant families coming to Chicago. But this year, you know, there's advocates, kind of education observers who are wondering if enrollment's actually going to dip.
Oh, really?
And that's in large part because of the federal government's crackdown on immigration and aggressive deportation policies. You know, if families, if there's a chilling effect, families might be self-deporting. I think the New York Times reported this week that immigration has dipped actually for the first time in many years. And so we're wondering if that's going to have an effect on attendance, but also an effect on families just leaving the city.
Oh, wow. Okay. Obviously, proficiency in core subjects especially, always a biggie this time of year. But this year it is, well, let me ask, is it correct that the metrics or the standards in some cases are actually changing?
Yes. So the State Board of Education a couple weeks ago approved a change in cut scores. And what that means is, you know, when kids in grades 3 to 8 and other grades take state tests every year, there are levels at which they can score proficient or you know, below standards or above. And so what the state did was for math and reading, they actually lowered the cut scores because they said that their data shows that, you know, the current cut scores didn't reflect what students were actually learning, and in some cases didn't reflect, you know, they were seeing kids go on to college and not have to take remediation courses, but they were scoring not proficient on these state tests. So they changed those cut scores, and they actually raised the cut scores for science, which is an exam that older students take. So, you know, I think people are wondering, you know, what is this going to mean for student learning? Will this reflect reality? How will this change, you know, what kids are learning inside of school, how teachers are approaching their, you know, lesson planning? So that's something we're certainly going to watch for.
That's very interesting because you always have to take a lot of different things into consideration with those tests. All right, let's move on to the teachers union. They fought for smaller classes, more staff, and now we get to see what the difference that may make actually amounts to. Where are we expecting the biggest impacts from their contract resolution?
Yes, so their contract was finalized in the spring, and so what we're expecting is slightly lower class sizes in kindergarten, and also in kindergarten. If you have a child in kindergarten, you'll notice that I believe it's 23 students. If you have more than don't quote me on that, but if you have a certain threshold, that there will be a teacher's assistant in that classroom as well.
All right.
And then there's some lower class sizes in some of those elementary and middle grades as well that were codified into the contract. And then also prep time was a big sticking point. Preparation time for elementary school teachers. In the new contract, the union won 10 additional minutes for elementary school teachers. And so how they're going to achieve that is for schools that are not meeting a state requirement to have 30 minutes of recess, you'll see that 10 minutes baked into essentially a longer recess for kids. So there might be some kids who notice
like,
that recess is longer.
Fight for that.
And then for schools that are meeting that requirement, the district has said there will be like a longer specialty class added, you know, something that's like not a core subject. So again, that is something that we're watching to see how will different schools implement this.
All right, we've already heard the governor say this week that there's no influx of state dollars flowing in for CPS, and the federal funding is a little iffy too. Where do we stand on that? And just on a final note, there's also that search for a permanent CEO or superintendent, I believe is the goal here. Where does that stand? Where are we in that process?
Yeah, so to answer the question about funding, you know, you said it, state leaders have said that they don't have the money right now. Of course, the union has pushed back on this, and so have other progressive organizations saying you should be taxing corporations, you should be imposing taxes, like additional taxes on the wealthiest earners. But it doesn't seem from the state level that there is a willingness to do that immediately. So I think I think CPS continues to kind of be on its own to figure out its budget issues, so we'll continue watching that. And then on the remind me of the final point.
The superintendent or
yes,
CEO.
How could I forget? Yeah. So the school board has embarked on this search, and actually they had set a goal of hiring someone as early as next month. Given everything that's going on, even as a reporter who covers this every day, I can't confidently say that there will be someone in place, but the search goes on, and I think some of the concerns have been the kind of, frankly, like chaos around CPS over the past year, whether that might dissuade people from applying. But they were able to get someone in place to replace the former CEO right when they needed to. They had multiple candidates in the running, so. There might be many candidates out there who are willing to take a challenge.
It's for sure a big job. We think you have a big job as well, covering schools in the days, weeks, and months ahead. So we appreciate you being here. And of course, Reema, with your work cut out for you, we'll be going back to you because there is the budget that goes over all of this. I think they have the vote next week,
yes,
right? Yeah.
they do.
Okay. All right. We'll talk to you again soon.